Greetings! It is I, Tantus Naravan Dracovin, born Emperor of the Dracovin Empire, and welcome. It is time to continue my discussion on the lands, legends, planes, and planeswalkers of Magic the Gathering, where I take each of these elements, introduce you to some history on some information on them, and help establish the world setting of Magic the Gathering by understanding them a little more. Today I have for you an interesting planeswalker from Dominaria, a half-elf, Freyalise. So Freyalise lived about 2,000 years, all was said and done. She was born in Tertiaire, in Dominaria, to both a human parent and an elf parent, an interesting hybrid that does not occur very often within Dominaria, or any of the planes. During the Ice Age upon Dominaria, a young half-elf orphan, named of course Freyalise, wandered these wastes until she was taken in by the kingdom of Storgard, which would in years to come be lost under a glacier. Within Storgard, this young orphan became a court mage and became adept at a number of elements. She in fact became the successor to Zilgelth of Clan Ruby. She was the childhood friend of Jason Carthlion of Clan Emerald. And it was the leader of Clan Emerald that went to Freyalise, Oriel Keljos, and suggested to her that she leave the city as she had grown in power. She was actually considering taking this off, but King Miko, King of Storgard and leader of the Council of Stone, didn't really like this. So he ordered a duel between Freyalise and her childhood friend of Jason. This was unfortunately under the influence of the twisted planeswalker, Devastate, who oftentimes did very terrible things deep within Dominaria over the years. We'll talk about him in the future. The two of them dueled, and Jason created a blast of green mana, which struck a fatal blow against Freyalise. But at that time, at that moment, her spark awakened. This blast of green energy instilled into her, so that she became a green-aligned planeswalker. The ascension nearly drove her mad. This sudden rush of power, creating a new life to her. If it wasn't for Joda, the Archmage Eternal, who guided her and helped her to realize her potential and to understand herself, to face back against this madness, she probably would have gone crazy. Now, as a planeswalker, she was notoriously known for the eye patch she wore, the short brown hair she had, and the fact that she would constantly levitate wherever she goes. She didn't want to stand on the ground. She would just be floating everywhere. Now, as her powers grew and became more developed, she began to look after herself as a protector of her elven brethren in Filnhorn and Llanowar. So she became a protector of these two groups of elves against the various evils and horrors that the Ice Age had to wrought against them. This protection that she put forth them formed in their minds over the years that she was some form of protective goddess to them, that she would bring life to her followers and swift death to her enemies. She didn't stop them from worshipping her. She didn't really encourage it either, but she allowed it to occur. Now she was constantly studying the Shard of 12 Worlds, that which was sealing up Dominaria and 12 other planes in a kind of bubble. Originally this was made to protect them from Phyrexia, but she was studying it because it was also helping with the Golgothian Silex, the Ice Age, to keep going. Her studies did eventually lead her to Azuria, a very small plane, where she ended up in a duel with Sot, the one that had encouraged the duel between her and Jason so many years before. She ended up destroying all the islands in the plane, but she was struck and left for dead. She did survive, though, and upon returning to Dominaria, she joined with a group of other planeswalkers and powerful spellcasters in order to cast the World Spell, which she did. The World Spell broke both the Ice Age on Dominaria and the Shard of 12 Worlds, which did indeed allow the Phyrexia invasion to occur so many years in the future, but it also did save Dominaria in a way. So, it was definitely a catch-22 in this one, to remove a protection that was protecting it from a planar threat, but in order to save the plane itself from this crippling, deadly ice age that had been slowly devouring the life from the land. Now, for a time, she left Dominaria after the ice age had ended, and went to Chandelar, the rogue plane which she'd actually used as a key focus of her world spell to break the shard. But when the Phyrexian invasion of Dominaria began, she returned to her home, where she did agree to join with Urza and become one of his 9 titans to fight against Phyrexia. 9 planeswalkers to battle against the threat. She didn't fully trust Urza, though. She knew he had one sort of solid goal in mind, and whatever his goals were, he was so focused on, he would ignore everything else. So she helped do battle against the horrific titans and horrific monstrosities that Phyrexia did wrought against the plane. She fought at Kolios and helped Eladrimi in his efforts, introducing him to where Skyshroud ended up, within Keld. She used her magics to protect Skyshroud from the various ice that was attempting to freeze it, because the forest was supplanted into a frozen area. Not very good for a forest. She joined with the Titans as they dove deep into Phyrexian plane, and she was one of the 4 planeswalkers which managed to place their soul bombs within the plane and allow them to be detonated, ravaging the plane of Phyrexia itself. Upon returning to Dominaria, though, she saw that Yawgmoth himself had arrived upon the plane. She prepared to battle against Yawgmoth, feeling that doom was on the horizon. She knew that they had lost so much battling and destroying that plane, but the very target that they were seeking with, the very Lord of Phyrexia, was right there front and center. She went to Skyshroud to protect it, and created an avatar of herself to protect Llanowar. She didn't have to go through that final battle, though. The legacy weapon was activated, and Yawgmoth was destroyed. Freyalise herself and Lord Windgrace were the only 2 of the Titans to survive. Only 2 out of 9 planeswalkers survived. Now, she then helped erect the Martyr's Tomb, a monument to those that were fallen, a monument to the planeswalkers lost and the heroes lost of the apocalypse, and she dedicated that place to them. Now years pass, centuries pass, and she continues to protect Skyshroud in particular against the threats of the plane as the mana-ravaged plane of Dominaria. The other forests she had known had managed to have protections of themselves. She still had influence in them. But Skyshroud was threatened by the very ice around it at constant times. So she connected her life force to it, her energies of her spirit, in order to protect this place. Her xenophobic tendencies continued. When the threat of the Time Rifts occurred, she ignored it. Gothan warriors and slivers were one thing. She was able to hold them off. But as more and more threats came to Skyshroud and caused war and destruction to be dealt upon the forest, she came to a moment of clarity, a realization. Teferi was right. Teferi's sacrifice was correct. Teferi had closed a rift at a high cost. She knew what she had to do. She couldn't keep this place safe. She couldn't keep her people safe. The people that she was protecting, the elves. She drew forth her power from the forest, all the magic she'd been using to protect it, dooming Skyshroud. But with this power that she had gathered, she focused this energy deep within her, and all the energy she has, and unleashed a wave, a blast of red and green mana into the Time Rift. She sealed this Time Rift, the one above Skyshroud, which had been created by its overlay into this plane. The overlay of Skyshroud was what caused this to occur. She lost her life. She died here. But this death also meant the doom of Skyshroud and its people. The result is, we do not know what truly happened to Skyshroud. Did it freeze completely? Did something get protected? The elves of Skyshroud, we do not know. We knew some of the refugees from the place have joined with the Keldans to form a new group. The Keldans who had been ravaged by everything that happened themselves. Centuries of things that these great warriors have been bashed down. But Freyalise did help save the plane. Her actions and the actions of other planeswalkers combined saved Dominaria. saved the multiverse. So she can be remembered for that. So that's it for today. Today I talked about Freyalise, a figure that had some tragedy in her life. She started out as an orphan. She ended up in a place that she thought was good, but she decided to move on, and in doing so was forced into a battle which was the battle of death with a childhood friend. This drove her spark to awaken, drove her to nearly go mad. But once she stabilized, she only looked to elves as her people. She gained this kind of xenophobia that she constantly was protecting the elven people, and it was always about them. Breaking the Shard of 12 Worlds, stopping the Ice Age, casting the World Spell. It was really more about them, not saving Dominaria. It was always these selfish reasons that she did what she did. Granted, the Phyrexians would have found a way through the Shard eventually anyway. She did maybe speed it up. But it probably was for the best, too. It allowed Urza to return. The things that occurred, things that she did, helped drive it. She helped save Dominaria during the Phyrexian invasion. She saw the threat there, that she couldn't protect her elves alone from this threat that would consume the world. Many lost their lives, and she respected them. And when it finally came to the last point, Teferi gave her a reason. Teferi's sacrifice gave her a reason to sacrifice herself. Teferi may have survived. Freyalise did not. She gave her life. She became a tragic figure. She's remembered in Llanowar. She's still a goddess there. She's remembered in many of these places for the actions she did. Being a goddess that she formed herself into in amongst these various elven tribes. They remember her. And they will for all time. Freyalise the Protector, who gave her life, gave her existence to save Dominaria. Granted, very few even knew she was a half-elf. They always respected her as true elven blood. Something that it's hard to say if they would have if they knew the truth. Those that did were deep into the worship of her and respected it. Those that didn't, hard to say. But she earned a respect that maybe she didn't have in her youth. Maybe that's why she was orphaned. Hard to say. But if you have any questions, comments, anything you want to say, anything you think I left out, please leave in the comments below. Please like, share, and subscribe. It's just for the channel, the Empire, the work I do. If you want to show some extra support, you can always check out my Patreon. Link description below. But regardless, until the next time, I bid you farewell.